Wellness is used to mean feel good. I'll feel like a full-time job. Between diet apps and guilt, we're exhausted trying to do the right thing. My guest today, Jenn Trepeck, is back to simplify all with the new book, Uncomplicating Wellness. She says the problem isn't you, it's the system. Let's talk about what happens when you stop trying so hard and start actually feeling well. Welcome back to the podcast, Jenn.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
It's interesting too, and one thing that really stood out in your book is WTF is wellness anyways. Something that really stood out to me. What do you mean by that?
So WTF is short for what the F.
Yeah.
And frankly, it's because we all use this word, but have any of us ever been like, what does it mean? What qualifies as wellness? And especially when it comes to what our doctors tell us or what we see on social media or what we read in a headline, we assume that everybody's operating from the same definition. But are we? We don't even really know. And we end up then following all these different things and rules and recommendations without ever maybe double checking that those are aligned with what we're looking for.
Do you think sometimes that the health and wellness industry is big business, a lot of money involved?
1,000% it is. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry. Globally, it's a trillion-dollar industry, but we haven't gotten there yet in the U.S. On its way, sure. But that's also then part of it, right? Recognizing that, and I'm a capitalist. I went to business school. I don't think that money being involved means that's inherently the problem. Mm-hmm. It just means that as consumers, we have to use our own discernment to say, this is the thing for me, that's not, because everybody's trying to sell you something and convince you that their thing is the thing that you need.
It's like the 2 o'clock in the morning supplement shake that if you can just pour water and add powder and you lose weight in 3 weeks.
And then again, it comes back to lose weight or remove fat.
Yeah.
And for how long, right? It took 3 weeks to get it off. Does it come back in a day? How long do you have to do the thing, right? So again, it goes to this idea of potentially asking some more questions and coming back to what's my goal? What is wellness to me so that I can then decide which supplement, which plan, which recommendations fit for me.
Definitely interesting too. And I was thought about that too. Since we're talking about that too, what has been your journey in the weight journey?
Yeah. So I joke that I was like the skinny one in a family of dieters growing up. I was a dancer growing up. And then I really started to gain weight between high school and college. And at that point I was like, all right, well, I know what to do because I watched this my whole life, mm-hmm. right? And I did every diet under the sun and gained and lost and ate less and moved more and every fad. I joke that there isn't a diet out there that I haven't done, my family hasn't done, or we don't know somebody who's done it. And I was living on that roller coaster because that's what it was until sort of worlds collided for me. So I graduated from the University of Michigan, moved to New York City, working, and I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do for the rest of my life, but I know I don't want to work for somebody else till the end of time. So I was looking for something to do outside of my full-time job with the intention of just taking that money and investing it or doing something where I could then eventually work for myself. And so that was happening parallel to trying to figure out my own health and my own weight. There were times where I felt like I would breathe and gain weight. And it's like something doesn't add up. Like someone would look at what I'm eating and how much I'm exercising and say, how is this possible?
Well, that definitely interests too. Think about that for a second. I know myself that my family sometimes I think there's like the heavy gene in them, in the genetics. And I look at a piece of pizza and I already gained like 10 pounds.
Exactly. And genetics are real. The other side of that is that epigenetics are real. So we can talk about that in a second. But for me, when I learned about this curriculum that I based my practice on, it was like skies parting, sun shining. I was like, oh my God, everybody deserves this information. And why isn't this what we learned? And how did all of those things come to be? And I became an insatiable student. I couldn't keep my mouth shut. I was telling everybody everything that I learned and everything I read. And so I became a health coach on the side of my full-time job because I was like, this is fundamentally human.
Well, interesting. How did that work out for you? What was kind of response, like being a health coach? How does that, can you give me an example or something that really stood out to you as being a health coach?
I mean, in the beginning, so 2007 is when I started, and it was a side hustle. When especially in the beginning, people were like, what's a health coach and why can't, I was also in my mid-20s, early to mid-20s. My friends were like, so why can't you come to the bar? It was before these things were so mainstream. But I work with people one-on-one or in small group cohorts with, my focus is really nutrition and lifestyle. And we talk about movement and sleep, stress, energy, food sensitivities, all of those kinds of things. My specialty area is metabolic health, cardiovascular health, so blood sugar, cholesterol, a lot of those kinds of things. And then sleep, like I said, sleep, stress, energy all play into it, but it's typically the weight management, the blood sugar, the cholesterol that tends to bring people in the door.
Definitely interesting about that there for a second too, like the blood stress in daily life now, especially now the crazy world we live in, and also sleep. Like all of a sudden everybody has sleep apnea, and everybody has sleep apnea, and everybody has type 2 diabetes.
Right.
And it also wondering too, you think that is to our food we're eating, or maybe the lifestyle we have?
It's all of it. Yes. So going back to this idea of genetics and epigenetics. So yes, genetics are real. Mm-hmm. It gives us a predisposition. Epigenetics is, so if your genes, remember Pinocchio, the puppet, mm-hmm. right? So your genes are the puppet. Your epigenetics are the strings. And so depending on what we do with, what strings we pull, the right arm moves or the left arm moves. So this gene expresses or that gene expresses. Really what we see is that with our lifestyle, it can turn up and turn down the volume on different genes. So just because we have a genetic predisposition to carry more weight or to convert food into fat stores or to crave sugar, that doesn't necessarily mean that's going to be our life. If we do things in our daily lives in terms of movement and nutrition and sleep and a lot of these other pieces, we can almost turn the volume down on that gene and we never even notice that there's a genetic predisposition to certain cravings. So yes, it's real, but it's not, the chapter in the book is your genes aren't the boss of you, right? They aren't the only thing determining what's happening. And I think we underestimate the seemingly small choices that we make every day.
That's true too. It's like little steps at a time that you realize, I admit it, I have a tendency to eat breakfast and all of a sudden on the way to work, I need to get a snack. I don't really need the snack, but I want the snack.
Yeah, so that might be a function of what you're having for breakfast. It might be a function of how you slept. It might be a function of just habit or misunderstanding thirst for hunger. There's a whole host of things that could be at play. And so part of what we go through in the book in Uncomplicating Wellness is to help you better understand what your body is telling you so that you can be your own best guide. Because the answers aren't in the thing that everybody's advertising to you.
Well, that's another thing, Trace, too, is the system. The system in the, like we talked about a few minutes ago about the whole big business of health and everything like that. But is the system broken?
Sure. Pieces of the system are broken. I think the incentive structure of the system is really broken. So if we look at, and by the system, right, there's a lot of different systems at play. In particular, in my mind right now, I'm thinking about the food system. But there's the diet industry, there's the supplement industry, right? There's a lot of quote unquote systems at play. And the incentive structure is where we end up with the challenge, because even thinking, going down what I was saying before about the food, our food manufacturers are incentivized to make things cheaper, more consumable, and less nutritious. Because we are one of a handful of countries where the nutritious foods cost more than the highly processed foods, because those ingredients in the highly processed foods are so inexpensive. Yeah. So we have a challenge in our food system that becomes the scenario where choosing healthful foods requires a certain level of income.
When you talk about that for a second, I just wanted to give an example and stuff. It was Fruit Loops. They were talking about it recently, probably a couple months ago. And the Fruit Loops here are so many chemicals in it. But if you went over to Europe, that's actually made with normal ingredients.
Right. And even the Fruit Loops that we ate as a kid are not the same as the Fruit Loops that are being sold today. Oh. They have evolved. Now, some of that comes to regulation in other countries, that things are allowed here that aren't allowed elsewhere to be used in food or to be used in the amounts in food. But also in a lot of those countries, the Fruit Loops are more expensive relative to an apple compared to what it is here. The fact that it's possible to make them that way is, I think, the most important piece of that. But it's also a different palate. Like, a lot of those have different sweeteners and different amounts of sweetener that the American palate has just evolved into something where that may not sell the same here, even if they were to take that exact same product and put it on our shelves.
It's just interesting about that, the wellness industry and stuff like that, is they throw so much information at you, and they just want to confuse you to buy their products, or to confuse you because there's so much information.
And I don't want it to think, that it's malicious, because I do believe that everyone is coming to it from a place of positive intention, that they believe in their product, they believe in what it can do. The issue is that when it comes to our marketing tactics, when it comes to how we convince people to buy something, again, it plays on these things that maybe are their objectives the same as ours. If their objective is to sell their product, then they're going to do things to get you to buy that product. Most of us, human behavior, fear tends to motivate more than other emotions. So if they can scare you enough or confuse you enough to think that's the answer, right, then they have a captive audience. And there's a lot of products where I know people where they're afraid to stop taking it. They don't notice a difference, but they're afraid to stop because what if, right?
Yeah.
What if it actually is doing something? So part of it comes back to taking that discerning eye to ourselves, to the things being marketed to us, and backing up and saying, what's my goal? Is this helping me get there? And listen, I work with supplements in my practice. I do a lot with supplementation with my clients. And I talk about in the book how supplements are not the be-all, end-all either.
Okay.
That we cannot supplement our way out of our lifestyle, out of our daily choices. They are to supplement, to add on to. By definition.
They also market to you like, this will cure your problem for this, or this will cure your problem for that. And you're like, oh, wow, that seems really great. But everybody's different. So everybody has different, I think, my opinion, everybody has different, it doesn't act unless they works for them the same way somebody else does.
Yeah, so there's a few things at play here. So number one, in the supplement industry. So despite what people have been told, supplements are regulated. They are, in fact, highly regulated by both the FDA and the FTC. Mm-hmm. So if anyone is telling you that a supplement will cure anything, They are in violation. Do not buy that product.
Okay.
You cannot use or talk about any supplement in relation to any disease state. So now, just like the food industry, there's a lot of regulation that's very difficult to enforce. So what ends up happening is while there is regulation, it's not really enforced. And then, of course, there are bad actors. So when it comes to what we're choosing in terms of supplements, it behooves you to work with someone who is spending their time learning and researching and in that space, who can help you choose the quality ingredients, the quality formulations that are personalized to you and your goals. For example, not every omega-3, where are they made? What are they made of? How is the fish oil expelled from the fish? What kind of fish are they using? Where is that plant? There's a lot of little factors. And then the dosing. So a lot of times, a therapeutic effective dose of omega-3s for like a maintenance dose is 3,000 milligrams or 3 grams of DHA and EPA specifically. DHA and EPA when it comes to cardiovascular health and cognitive function.
Okay.
Most people, when you go look at your omega-3, we're not getting that. So oftentimes we choose the thing that's maybe more cost effective, but it's also not giving us an effective dose. So people will show me their omega-3, that bottle that was supposed to be 30 days. When we look at what would be an effective dose, it actually lasts them 3 days.
Oh, wow.
And now all of a sudden, it's not so cost effective.
No.
Right? So it just means we need to work with somebody. We need to have somebody who's immersed in that space to help us make those choices, because it's not always the case that the more expensive thing is the best choice. It's also not necessarily the case that the least expensive one should be avoided.
It's definitely interesting too. Like, we're always chasing. Another thing in the market, I think, is chasing the next fix. And the one thing that's really standing out right now is the GLPs. Like all those, they're all,
Yep.
They're very good. I understand. I know, because I'm a type 2 diabetic and I take it and it helps my blood sugar. But it's also marketed to people to lose weight, so
Yes.
it drives up the price.
Yes.
And it's just interesting to watch the market, because people who need it is also, because the people who want to get it, it's also a shortage.
So there's a lot of things at play when it comes to GLP-1 medications and weight management. And this is fundamentally my bread and butter. Hang with me on this. People want it to be the be-all, end-all. And the truth is, there is a difference between making the number on the scale go down and health. There are 0 diseases, 0, patently 0, that exist only in bigger bodies. So simply existing in a smaller body does not inherently mean that we are healthy. And so we look at these as being this magic pill and this magic answer. And then because it gives us wiggle room, we make potentially other choices that aren't necessarily supporting our health. And if we're going to use them, we have to recognize them as a tool, as a piece of the equation, and have a plan for supporting health before, during, and after being on them. Now, your doctors do not have, unless they work with someone like me and some of the consultants that I work with, your doctors do not have a plan for before, during, and after to support those other things. It is now the therapeutic standard of care for anything weight-related to prescribe a GLP-1.
Oh, wow. Didn't know that.
So that's their default answer, and that is what they are being told to tell you. There are options. There are also ways to get off of them and maintain your health, maintain your weight. We also need to make sure that when we're on them, that we're removing fat, not just losing weight.
Okay.
And having that muscle wasting. It's really important that we still choose for nutrition. There's a whole snowball effect of what can happen. Going to your point of people taking them only for the weight management piece and not having any of the other qualifying markers, is I did some digging. This was now probably, goodness, 4 or 5 years ago when they first really were on the market. I always talk about things too early. So I was talking about them. People were like, I don't even know what you're talking about. So I started digging into it. And if you don't need this, but you're taking it for solely the weight management benefit, it can create other issues that inherently just increase your chance of what's called all-cause mortality, which is increased chance of death of anything.
Oh, wow.
It is important that we put it in perspective of what these are. My other big concern with the way that they are proliferating everything is the social piece. So for a long time, it was skinny is beautiful, right? I remember growing up in the 80s and it was all the supermodels and all the magazines and the TV commercials, right? Like all of that stuff. And then for a while, we had this swing toward, remember the Dove campaign with real women? And then we have this health at every size kind of piece. And now, and by the way, in all of that, there was this piece of if you're carrying excess weight,
yes,
that's a you problem. You don't have willpower, you're lazy, there's something wrong with you, right? Like it was a you problem and you were a failure. In the health at every size, in the Dove Everyday Women or All Women campaign, we started to recognize that health isn't a size. Biology is real. And there's a lot of chemistry happening in the body, that this isn't all a function of willpower or choice.
I
Right?
have a question about that for 1 second, though,
Yeah.
about willpower, though, because that's always a thing thrown around. It's like a magic
Okay,
word.
so I'm going to come back to willpower because that's a whole other kind of can of worms. So what my piece that's troubling to me on a social level is that now with the medications, we're back to if you are not in a small body, it is a choice because you are choosing not to take this medication that's available or there's something wrong with you. We're back to that piece of inferring something about people based on their body size that is completely, in my mind, misappropriated. Mm-hmm. But it's what happens when something like this is made available and so prolific in the expectation that this is what everybody would do. That at this point, why would you choose to be in a bigger body if you could take a pill?
That's true. That's definitely true. And but it's an interesting thing to think about for 1 second, though, because they market it so well. They market it so well, the people, and then you can get it just here by just dialing this number. Then you can get. And
I know people who were prescribed this medication and their blood work prior to that showed endocrine disruption, meaning their hormones were all out of whack. I am not a health professional, but I find it mind-boggling that a qualified health professional would put somebody who's already in endocrine disruption on a medication that then works with and functions within the gut and the endocrine system.
definitely too. It's an interesting. I've been on it for a while, and I definitely know the experience of being on it.
Yep.
And stuff like that, and the slowing down the digestive system, and the sometimes getting an upset tummy and taking it. But I definitely understand that too. But in one thing that was interesting, I know you want to get back to it. I think it's really important to think about is willpower.
Yeah.
Somebody says you don't have the willpower to not to eat that piece of candy or have that ice cream or whatever. But why is that word so thrown around?
Because willpower, and by the way, I have a number of episodes on willpower just so we can all understand. But willpower is essentially self-discipline. And so again, it puts the onus on the person to say this is a you problem. The thing that the average person, most of us don't understand about willpower is that it's a finite resource. And any kind of decision-making, any kind of analysis, any kind of delayed gratification, any kind of self-control, all use from that same willpower resource.
Okay.
So it's not that people don't have willpower. It's typically that they use it elsewhere. And they use up the resource. They don't necessarily do the things that help replenish that resource. And then they think, why do I suck? Why can't I just not eat the M&Ms? It's not a coincidence that breakfast is an easier meal to have, quote unquote, on plan than dinner and after dinner. Because at that point, we've gone through an entire day. We have used up that resource of decision making.
Do you think a lot of it? Yeah. Do you think a lot of it has to do with our day, the stress of the day? Maybe when you get enough sleep the night before.
There's a lot of factors. So sleep is a big factor. What you eat, your blood sugar is a big factor. Movement, stress, certain people that we're around. Anytime we make a decision, anytime, even subconscious decisions. So let's say you're driving home from work and you don't stop at the Dunkin' Donuts for the 5-cent donut holes or whatever they have at the end of the day, right? Not stopping is still a subconscious decision that drinks from that willpower. Every decision that you make related to your workday drinks from that willpower. What you're wearing in that day drinks from that willpower. Figuring out the logistics of your family drinks from all of that willpower. Anytime we are using that mental capacity to make decisions, to have judgment calls, to figure things out, it all drinks from that willpower. So it's not, if also the irony is also that it's based on blood sugar. So if our blood sugar is low, that drinks from the willpower cup a lot. So we are told, eat less, move more.
Yeah.
Eat less, blood sugar drops. Then we're around the candy. Of course we don't have the willpower because we have low blood sugar. But we're told to eat less, move more. And now if you eat the M&Ms, you're the problem. It's chemical. It's not personal. So understanding what drinks from that willpower cup and then what replenishes it, like our movement, like tracking, like accountability, like gamification, generosity, right? There's a whole host of things that we can do and build into our day to ensure that we have willpower left over when we need it.
It's another thing too. It's also, I was thinking about that for a second, because especially when I'm doing a lot of editing when the podcast and stuff late at night and I'm tired. I'm tired. So I'm like, oh, what sugary thing in the house have? So I grab my son's little gummy things he has in closet because I'm tired. I'm like, that's the signal to go to sleep.
It is, but there's a few things at play there. So one piece is it's late at night. We need energy. What's fast fuel to the brain? Sugar.
Yeah.
Right? So of course we're craving that when we're tired and we need fast fuel. The other thing is the computer screen gives us blue light. Blue light is the closest thing to daylight on the light spectrum. So like 7th grade science light spectrum. Blue light is the closest to daylight. The master regulator of your circadian rhythm, your chronobiology, right? Every cell in your body has its own clock. Every organ has a clock, right? Our whole body has a clock. Our objective is to get all of those clocks working in sync, right? The master regulator of the clocks is in the brain behind the eye. Light is the master regulator, what's called the reticular activating system. So light is the master regulator of our clocks. Now, play this out. 10:30, 11, 11:30, midnight. We are physically exhausted. Our eyes are getting daylight signal from the blue light. Our body says, I don't understand. I am exhausted. I'm getting daylight signals. I need fuel if I'm going to stay awake and function. And I need fast fuel. That's sugar. So we're adding insult to injury with each of the pieces of what we're doing. It doesn't mean that the world's going to end. We just have to put some things in place, or we have to figure out. I have a thing on my computer called Flux, f.lux, that changes the coloring of my screen as I get closer to what I have in there as my wake up time. And so if I'm still on my computer and we're getting to within a certain number of hours of my bedtime, it gradually starts to change the colors of my screen so that I'm not staring at blue light when I'm still working at 11 and 11:30. Because listen, I'm there with the rest of us, I'm still human, which is why the feedback that I'm getting on Uncomplicating Wellness, the book, is exactly that it's reality. It's not this ideal scenario of somebody who's not living in the same place that I am. I don't think it's reasonable for us to say, I'm never going to work on the computer at night.
That's true. And also, too, is another thing, too, with the phones. Everybody now, that sometimes
Well, I'm the worst. I lay in bed and I scroll and I scroll. And then all of a sudden, it's like an hour later and I'm like, why am I still up?
Or I'd be the same way at 2 a.m. I'm like, roll over. Hey, what's on Twitter? What's on what's on Facebook? And I'll realize I got to go back to sleep. My alarm's going to go up at 5 o'clock.
Exactly.
So yeah, I'm in the same boat. And your brain's awake, so you're more awake. And if I woke up and rolled back over, I would go back to sleep in 3 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah.
An interesting thing, another thing I was thinking about is something you mentioned in a book, and I thought it was the biostacking versus biohacking. I thought that was pretty interesting, 2 words. I know about biohacking, but I'm not sure about biostacking.
So we hear that word biohacking, right? But some of us are like, I don't even really know what it means. And it's essentially things that we can do to manipulate our biology, right? It's a hack to get our body to do certain things, certain processes. Now, they can be great, but by definition, a biohack is a relative improvement, like 10%.
Yeah.
So if you're at 90% health, 10% is tremendous, right?
Yeah.
That is groundbreaking and significant and noticeable. The reality, though, is that in the United States, only 12% of people are metabolically well.
Oh, interesting.
So 88% of people are not operating at 90% health.
Oh, wow.
88% of people are potentially operating at 30% health. Now we add this biohack, we get a 10% increase. We're not moving the needle.
No.
So the real question is, what are the things that we need to do that really move the needle in our health, that get us from where we are now to that 90%? Even get us to that 75, 80%. Then we can add some supplements. Then we can add some biohacks. And now we're really optimizing, right? So the biostack is 6 things that we want to make sure we are doing in our everyday lives.
Okay.
It's our nutrition, our movement, hydration, which, by the way, is more than just water, sleep, stress management, and connection. If we can get those 6 things happening, you are going to see tremendous improvements in your health. And then we can add supplements and biohacks to optimize. But we cannot supplement our way out of those things. We cannot biohack our way. You're not going to cold plunge your way out of not sleeping.
It's interesting, too. I was wondering about sleeping. I know that's a big part in everybody's life and stuff like that. Is that a good foundation to start?
Yes. I call sleep the ultimate biohack.
Why's that?
There are few things that don't happen when we sleep. Sleep is detoxification. Sleep is memory. Sleep is repair. Sleep is refueling, re-energizing, refilling that willpower cup. Mm-hmm. Sleep is repairing everything in the body and eliminating toxins and restoring. If we never give our bodies the chance to do that and do that well, we will not have health. It is only a matter of time before we notice the disease processes taking over. So few things can improve health more than sleeping. Think about it. When you're not feeling well,
Yeah.
what's the most helpful thing to do?
Sleep.
Sleep.
But also, if
Sleep is
you don't
healing.
you don't get a good night's sleep, you get brain fog,
Yep.
your
So
memory.
when, exactly. And going back to blood sugar, when we don't sleep well, we are less insulin sensitive. When we don't sleep well, we are less sensitive to the hormone that tells us we're done eating.
True.
So there's so much that sleep does. We are the only species on the planet that deprives themselves of sleep for really no good reason.
No. It's not because we deprive ourselves of sleep because we want to watch that extra Netflix show we're binge watching.
Listen, I watch an inordinate amount of television. I am with everybody on that. And prioritizing sleep, focusing on sleep, not just quantity, but quality of sleep, getting that deep sleep. There is something different that happens that is really only possible from 11 p.m. till 3 a.m. If we are not sleeping in that time, we are significantly detracting from our health.
Do you think it's important to have a ritual, a schedule, like maybe going to sleep at a certain time, getting up at a certain time? Because everybody's, it's the weekend, I can sleep to 9 or 10 o'clock. I have a friend of mine who he's the same age as me. He'll still sleep to noontime. I'm like, dude, you're not 17 anymore.
Yeah. And there's a whole bunch in the chapter on sleep. There's a whole bunch of things and strategies to play with. So you can decide. But the body responds really well to routine. The body also responds well to variety. So we want to understand what are the pieces that we want to be routine and what are the pieces where we want variety. And I'm a big fan of living your life and going for that night out and enjoying people, right? That's part of connection and all that stuff that might hinder our sleep sometimes. But for the most part, we are served by going to sleep at the same time and waking up at the same time within reason every day. So when people try to create a bedtime, they try to force themselves to sleep, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to recommend that instead of trying to force yourself to sleep and starting with that bedtime, start with the consistent wake up time.
Okay.
Just set your alarm for the time that you need to wake up and wake up at the same day, more or less, every single day. Over time, your bedtime will fall into place.
Oh, interesting.
But the more we start to wake up and start our bodies, right? First morning light also can help with energy throughout the day after we wake up. So getting some daylight to our eyes to start our day, set those clocks, right? I wake up, set those clocks with the light, and move about our day. Your bedtime will fall into place. But having that bedtime routine, having those few things that you do, it's like Pavlov. Right? We can then start to do those things and then we get tired, even if we're not tired when we start to do those things.
You said Pavlov. I just thought for a second is we moved the clock back.
Yes.
And all of a sudden it gets dark out early and I'm yawning at 4:30.
Oh, yeah.
Because I see the dark. And just when you said that, I just thought about that for a second.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm with you. I know the time change really wrecks you.
It's another thing important too. I know movement is important too, but also connection. Yeah. And how important is that too?
I think connection is the most overlooked piece of longevity. So when we look at the blue zones, places in the world where people live the longest and are the healthiest, right? They have that health span, not just lifespan. One of the things that we see is that in their older years, they are embedded in the community. They have purpose and connection. They often live with their families. They take care of the younger kids. Mm-hmm. All of that stuff is purpose and connection. There is community in their living. It is so important for health. There's even research around holding hands is a biological signal that you are that you are sharing whatever stress someone is experiencing. It lightens the load of stress just by holding someone's hand.
That's interesting too. The just holding somebody's hand and like that connection with somebody, because you mentioned purpose for a second, and
Yeah.
my old boss who retired, he was 72 years old, and I tell him, sir, you better have a purpose and something to do, because if you don't have a purpose, that's like a quick way to the grave. And I remember doing an interview a while back, and a gentleman said that his boss had retired. He could play so much golf, but 2 years later he was dead because he had no purpose.
Wow. Yeah.
And so you mentioned purpose. That brought back that story.
For sure. And first of all, I'm so sorry, but it's real.
Yeah.
You know, a reason to get out of bed, a reason to be in the world, a reason to take care of yourself. And I just flipped open to the book. So the chapter on connection is called Just Hug a Person, right? And really the power of touch, the power of community, the power of connection is so important. And if there's one thing that costs nothing, obviously we want to make sure that a hug is invited, right?
Important.
But according to the research, 4 hugs a day for survival, 8 hugs per day for maintenance, 12 hugs per day for growth.
Wow.
Start to hug your kids, your family, your friends, the people around you. Right?
Exactly. It's interesting.
It's important.
It is important. My son's 12 now, so I try to hug. I got to chase around to get a hug because I get him in a headlock and stuff like that. Dad wants a hug. Come here, I give you a hug like that. But it's important too, because I think we're becoming an isolated society, to be honest with you.
Yes. We have this fake connection with the internet where it can seem like connection. There can be emotional connection with people, right? Or friends or people. Listen, like I send memes and things to my friends at the best of them all day, sometimes all night. I'm not going to lie, right? But that is not the same as really being in the presence of other people. It's not the same as that hug. It's not the same as holding someone's hand.
It's interesting. One more thing about this, and I think it's rather very important, is like the ways after the pandemic, everybody seems to be working a lot from home and actually work in the office. And me as a person, I think we're social creatures. And if you don't have something like, say you're home on the weekend, nothing to do, you're home and stuff like that, I feel I can't wait to get back to work. I get to talk to my friends at work, that social connection, because we feel isolated, you feel sad, you don't have anybody around or anything like that. But that's just an experience that I was thinking about when you said the connection.
It's so true. Even when I think about people who are starting their career not in an office and working totally remotely, it's so different than when we started. And what it means even for that learning curve, for that experience, for learning how to build relationships, to walk up to somebody and have a conversation. There's so much to it that we're missing in our increasingly remote lives.
One thing quickly, I just wanted to touch upon before we wrap up and stuff is, the one I thought was really interesting was supplements, sex, and poop. I had to say the word poop.
Yes. Let's all have fun saying poop. So this is part 3 of the book.
Yep.
Supplements, sleep, and poop as understanding what our body is telling us. So part of the supplements piece we talked about, which is you can't supplement your way out of your lifestyle, out of the seemingly small things that we do every day. But also, the supplements that we gravitate toward can give us an indication of which of those 6 pieces of the biostack we might want to start with. Right? With poop, the frequency, the color, the consistency, as in texture, right? And also consistency of how often we're going. How hard is it to get out? All of these things are telling us and showing us what's happening inside the body. We often ignore everything our body is telling us because we've been given rules and guidelines, or really more mandates and rules than shoulds that everybody tells us we're supposed to be doing. And so we follow those instead of paying attention to our own body. So your poop is telling you a lot about how you respond to foods, right? It's telling you a lot about your digestive system. It's telling you about your nutrient absorption. We just have to start to pay attention and understand what it's showing us. And sex is another indicator of what's happening. So arousal, lubrication, erections, desire are all connected to blood flow and stress.
Oh, definitely too, yeah.
Right? So then when we think about blood flow, we want to look at our exercise, our blood sugar balance, our stress levels, right? All of these things. So again, what happens is that we start to experience these things. But because our medical system separates everything, right? Because you go to a different specialist for everything, we in our own minds start to separate all of that also. And we think, oh, everything's fine. I just blank.
Yeah.
And what I hope that everybody recognizes from Uncomplicating Wellness is that the entire body is connected. And so we might see something showing up in our sex lives that's an indication of something else going on. And when we can catch it, right? When we can catch the whisper before it's the scream, we have infinitely more options for how to address it. And even when it's at that scream, we have options. We want to come at this from a combination of factors so that our ultimate objective is health and longevity and being able to do the things that you want to do and live the life that you want to live with the people that you want to live it with and all of that kind of stuff. Going back to where we started of how do you define wellness? Decide what that is and let's work toward that for you. So go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's your permission to ignore anything that doesn't work for you, anything that you know is not the thing that you need to focus on, and to focus on the piece that resonates with you most. Because you know your body better than anyone, better than your doctor, better than your neighbor, better than the influencer, better than the people selling the supplements.
Robin, I think one more thing about poop is, and I know for a fact that I always turn around after using the bathroom to check it out and going, what color is it? What do you know? And stuff like that. So it's been, I think it's almost like an instinct thing to do to make sure you're okay. But it also, an interesting, you mentioned how different colors, different consistency and all that stuff. And I was just thinking about that going, we all do it. We all go check and see.
We all do it. We just don't necessarily know what it means. Yeah.
Exactly.
So the answers are there for you in Uncomplicating Wellness.
There's one thing is also before is like stress and cortisol.
Yeah.
Living with stress. And then cortisol, because we're always, if somebody's living really stressful, is always living in fighting flight mode. And what if that plays in a factor in somebody's health?
Everything.
Everything?
So fight or flight mode, as you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
Think back like caveman times. Fight or flight is how we escape the saber-toothed tiger that's running after us. That response is designed biologically to be like 15, 20 minutes. Because what happens? We run, we find a place to hide, we watch the saber-toothed tiger pass us, we calm down, we move on with our lives. Or we get eaten and the rest of it doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
So that stress response was designed to be a finite period of time. Our modern lives are such that is not a finite period of time. It is endless. So here's the difference. When your body is in fight or flight, any body function that is not critical to survival of the next 20 minutes turns off. Because it doesn't matter. Your immune system, your reproductive system, your digestive system, your metabolism, growing hair and nails, right?
Yeah.
All of that stuff turns off because it doesn't matter if you're not alive in 20 minutes, and turning those things off for a short period of time, especially those things that take up a lot of energy, right, for the body, those things turn off for a short period of time so that we have the energy for the fight or flight. When we're constantly living in that stress because our physiology doesn't know the difference between an uncomfortable conversation and a saber-toothed tiger, right? Or our phone buzzing, or our alarm clock going off, or an email from the boss, or whatever it is. Our physiology doesn't know the difference. It reacts in that fight or flight. And so we are constantly getting these hits throughout the day that are signaling to the body, fight or flight, turn those things off. Fight or flight, turn those things off. To the point where they never even come back online. So what happens when our digestive system, when our metabolism, when our immune system, when our reproductive system have all been offline for extended periods of time? Not health.
No, definitely
not energy, not vitality, right? Yeah.
Definitely. Just, I was thinking about that because a lot of, whether it's society and where we live nowadays and stuff like that. Wrapping up, final thoughts, Jen, anything you want to leave that's something that about your book or something about health and wellness?
I think the book, the subtitle of the book is Ditch the Rules, Quiet the Noise, Reclaim Your Life. If you have been overwhelmed by the amount of information coming at you, if you feel like there's so much information and you don't even know which way to go, or you have tried every single thing there is under the sun, or even if you're sitting there and going, I feel like I should probably be doing more than I am, this book is for you, and a way to help you discern and decide what are those pieces that are worth your time, effort, and energy, how you can pick those things and then put the blinders on so that you don't have shiny object syndrome and like you're not swayed by every single thing that is coming at us, because you don't need more information. You need a lens through which to evaluate all of the information that's coming at us. That's what this book is.
Where they connect you, we can find more about your book, and where
Yes.
also you have a podcast too. I love the name of the
Yes.
podcast, and when they can find your podcast too.
Thank you. Yes, the podcast is called Salad with a Side of Fries. So the book info, the podcast, everything's on my website, asaladwithasideoffries.com. Book is available on Amazon, paperback, and ebook, wherever you like to get your books. I think it's currently out of stock at Barnes & Noble and bookshop.org, but the publisher is working on all of that, so hopefully it'll be back soon. But wherever you like to buy books, it's there. Uncomplicating Wellness. All social media, I am at Jenn Trepeck, JENNTREPECK. And then, of course, Salad with a Side of Fries podcast. Wherever you like to listen to podcasts, you can search Salad with a Side of Fries and it'll come up. Thank you for having me. Thank you for this conversation. It's always a pleasure.
I still like the name of the podcast.
Thank you.
Jen, thank you much for being on the podcast. I really do appreciate it. All links will be in the show notes for this episode. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.